Ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, welcome very much. Big special welcome is what I'm trying to say. I know words are going to escape me. It is going to be difficult. I have as much voice as I can muster, is how I'm going to put this. You are here, Variety Sports Network, Talking the Gridiron, end of week 15, and it is time to look around at the NFL picture. We'll see if some of our other guests are able to join. Otherwise, it will just be us, but that is perfectly fine because everybody knows if you listen to our show, if you've heard me on Ohio Sports Talk, when I've done my guest shows on the 5-hole NHL show that's on the Variety Sports Network, I have yet to be on Saturday morning tailgate, but with college football going the way that it is, I feel like that's in the future. Or if you've seen me anywhere else, you know that I'm more than capable of running a show on my own. It might be even better for me to run a show on my own because I won't have so many wrong opinions. Let's just put it bluntly. Wrong opinions. So thank you very much. Be sure to follow at Variety_Sports. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a comment. Tell us how you think we're doing. If you agree with us, if you don't agree with us, I'm very interested to see what people have to say at this point because we have playoff spots being clinched. We have divisions now no longer being fought for, yet we also still have a lot of teams that are fighting for their playoff lives. So I'm going to get this tweet sent out here live, and we will be able to get into some of the games. But like I said, check out Variety Sports. If you have a second, be sure to follow at FEOTB Pod. Check out the Variety Sports Network and Far End of the Bench YouTube channels. Far End of the Bench, we just had a few videos come out today, so lots of content on both places. 7th inning stretch, 5-hole show, as I mentioned. Double will be getting going once Talking the Gridiron is over. Darren is pulling a lot of different things. Big shout out, by the way, to our boy Darren Breyer. You know it has to take a lot for him to miss an episode. So it is his oldest child's birthday today. He has one turning 12. It is a special birthday edition. He is a possible special guest. He did tell me if his dinner gets over soon enough, he'll try and come on. Honestly, Darren, we deserve to have you just be a father for this point. I think back to last season, and I know I was in and out a lot with my vacations, with the wrestling, with getting ready for school the next day. I know that I wasn't as around as I probably should have been, which I owe you a lot. So you have no obligation. You are, you have a family. You have children. You have somebody whose birthday it is to celebrate. So be a father. We might have Terrell come on. I'll send this a couple different places. I sent it to Nico. We'll see if he's able to make it on. He did tell me that he has a family dinner. So I'm getting this tweet sent out, and we will be ready to rock and roll into the first game. First game we're going to be looking at if you want to get set up for it. And I'll also have some updates for Sunday Night Football coming through as well with Green Bay. They were dominating Seattle early on. So we'll see if the Seahawks can make a game out of it at home. We are going to be talking about Commanders and Saints first once we get this thing rolling here. Check out our boy on at Variety Sports. There we go. At Variety_Sports. Hashtag live at Talkin Gridiron. Be sure to follow at Talkin Gridiron on X as well. Forget to mention that all the time. There's a lot of different things that we forget to mention. So please bear with us, but do know that with Wrapped coming up, the end of the year, that is a pretty special moment for independent content creators. So if you follow somebody that's not the biggest platform, biggest personality, anything like that, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, follow them. It helps out a ton. Whether you like them or not, it's a helpful thing to do. If you want something to continue to talk crap about, why not, send out a nice tweet every once in a while or a nice review and get more people involved. All right, we are just about set to get things rolling here. I'm going to have to spare my voice. I've mentioned as well. Big shout out. I do a lot of shout outs for those of you that have never been on with just me before. I do want to give a shout out to the Castleview wrestlers. We were out at a tournament at Columbine. You might be familiar with the name Columbine High School. That is the unfortunate site of at that point, the biggest mass shooting in the United States. It happened in March. So it'll be coming around here after the new year for another anniversary. But we were at Columbine High School, Columbine Invitational, Castleview. We had 4 freshmen in the tournament, all of them except for I think one won a match. We had one freshman at 120 pounds lose in the second round and wrestle all the way back for fifth. We ended up having a freshman take first, pinning his way through the entire tournament. As we said, big shout out to Darren. Happy birthday to your boy as well. I know it's a big moment for him. Don't be too afraid. Don't be too afraid. You're only 1 year away from being a father of a teenager, Darren. So that's what you have to remember. 1 year. That's all you got. As for the Castleview wrestling team, we just had a bunch of really tough performances, and we had a hard week of practice. We challenged the kids a lot. It was really cool to see how everything turned out. All right, let's get into some NFL football. The Washington Commanders take down the New Orleans Saints on the road, 20-19. The Commanders now push their record to 9-5. Oh, here we go. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. It's like playing this. We're talking about your commies. We're talking about your Commanders, 2019. Obviously, big shout out to Terrell. Thank you for jumping on. I know that Darren, if he is able to make it on, I told him just go be a dad at this point. It's his kid's birthday. We need to let him be himself. But I'm sure you're excited. That was a big win.
Well, happy birthday to his son. Happy birthday.
Thank you for joining us. Before we get into the games, tell everybody where they can hear you. Terrell, you've been coming on with us on Talking the Gridiron here on Variety Sports pretty much majority of the season. So glad to have you back. But tell us where we can get your sports talks. Where can we get your sports opinions outside of this show?
Hey, man, I appreciate being back on you. Of course, Jimmy, me and you go back a minute, you know what I'm saying? But now that my job training is almost over, I will be back on regularly 2 times a week on Relative Sports Talk on YouTube, Spotify. We're trying to venture out some more things going on. But I enjoy being on here with y'all, talking the gridiron every Sunday, which you get the real feelings after the games. And, you know what I mean? We fans, it's some fandom coming on after these games. That's why I love it on Sundays with y'all.
Let's talk about fandom, because I'm sure like 2 big touchdowns initially in that game. It was a lot closer than it looked at the beginning, but you take wins how you can get them. At this point, you are, because the Eagles are what they are. They're kind of running away with the division. You're just sitting there in a spot where you want to stay competitive, stay in that last wild card spot. So get the 2 big touchdowns. Make sure your defense is able to hold it down. What were some of the things that stood out? Are you excited, disappointed? Is this what you expect, or are you on the same page as me where it's kind of like, just take them where they come? And if it's pretty, great. If it's not, I'll take a win. It's good for the standings. Where are you sitting with your team right now?
Well, everything is extra to me right now. You know what I mean? There was no expectations for me. It was all about, did we draft the right quarterback, first of all? Because I've been on this show saying initially I thought Drake May, the process of watching him, I would have rather had him. Whether that was me being scared of the RG3 effect, probably was more mentally than anything else. But now that we have what we have, it's about keeping them healthy. I don't think our defense gives us a chance to really compete for much more than what we've already had. And his just energy in the locker room has brought us to be successful in the playoff hunt, much like your former girlfriend, the Denver Broncos with Bo Nix. You know what I mean? Same type thing as far as that comes. But I'm just grateful to be even being talked about without having rape in my organization and owners going on different trips trying to hide from all these allegations and everything. I'm just happy we can talk about football in Washington.
No, it's the truth. It's been a long time coming, and you can kind of feel the weight was lifted last season. Dan Quinn is now in there. He's establishing a culture, which is what we talked about with a lot of teams on this show. There's a lot of teams this year that you're seeing, well, damn, when you get an actual adult on the sidelines, and we're seeing a lot of teams where there's no adult on the sidelines and it's waves of emotion, up, down, side to side. What you can say at 9-5 is that you're fairly consistent. You're not as consistent as you want to be, but you're fairly consistent. You're going to be in a lot of these games, one score. You got a lot of young guys, and yeah, I'm in a tough spot with my defense as well on a lot of sides. Yeah. And defense is tough. There's good defense being played, but it's tough to play defense in the NFL. That's a big thing that's been mentioned the last few weeks. But I think for Washington, you got to be able to win in different ways. And at this point, they've been able to put together a huge offensive performance, win a couple shootouts. That one, the Spencer Rattler effect almost came through.
God.
I guess That would have been an interesting storyline to go out at the end of the day, but it didn't end up happening, and the Commanders get a big win for their playoff hopes. But that was, I mean, Jane Daniels, 25 of 31, 226, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, not turning the ball over at this stage. Trust me, when we get to a particular game down in the later half of the window, one that I maybe was invited to and was able to see in person, that was a lot of turnovers on both sides. Lots of turnovers. It was sloppy football. But hey, I had a lot of fun. And I'm starting to build a reputation. You'll appreciate this. My shit talking has gotten to the point where I was holding penalties on the Colts offensive line. Move your feet. God damn it. Stop. That's all they're going to talk about is if you hold. And then some person 5 rows up. I'm in my Tebow jersey. If you're not watching, if you're listening to this back live, tell him, Tebow. Yeah. That's right.
That's right, baby. That's right.
All right. Let's continue on with that early slate. Chiefs and Browns, 21-7. Big story out of this game is that Patrick Mahomes, I believe he did not finish. That was when I initially got to the stadium. We saw Carson Wentz warming up, going in for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not sure. Mahomes did not return after that. They pretty much, I mean, it's the Browns. So I feel like that was more precautionary, if anything. He seems to be superhuman, and any time that it seems like he might miss a game or two, he's able to come back and play at whatever percentage, and he's still really good at whatever percentage. My issue, if I'm going to be putting myself in the seat of a Chiefs fan right now, I know this team is not the team that we've had in the past. So, yeah, we've been able to roll out I can't remember the guy who was coaching high school football, Daniels or something like that, Chase Daniels. We've been able to roll him out and win when Mahomes has been a little bit banged up. Do we have the team to really do that? Do we have a team that we can win with Carson Wentz as our starting quarterback? If Patrick Mahomes isn't able to go, we're in a tight division race or conference race, especially with Buffalo picking up a huge win that we'll talk about later on. As a Chiefs fan, I would be worried. Like, is Patrick Mahomes healthy, and are we able to win with him at 75%? What is this future going to look like if 15 is not behind center? I think that's where we should start with this game.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think this was very significant. This whole week, as we go further through these games, we'll talk about it. I don't want to spoil it. But injuries can play a factor in a lot of major events going forward. Health matters so much. And that's why you can see certain teams picking up steam because they're getting out right times, or vice versa. Patrick Mahomes and the whole team, I mean, if you're a fan of that team, you're just living off of, we've done it 2 years in a row, and we've had 1 year where they said, no Tyreek Hill, we can't win. And then another year, oh, we just don't look like the same team. And Kelsey looks awful. And Taylor Swift this, Taylor Swift that. And they've won again. And now we have our third year where we're like, they just don't know. I don't know. No. But they were undefeated and they finally lost. I mean, it's just, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're just holding on to that. We've heard this before. They figured out some kind of way. Us outside of us is like, yeah. The hero's over. The dynasty is over. We're excited. Like, yes, some new blood. So we'll see how it goes, though.
I mean, it's easy to win in a situation like that. Jameis Winston throws 3 interceptions. Dorian Thompson-Robinson comes in and throws another interception. So 4 turnovers from the Cleveland Browns. That's just the story of their season. And it's hard. I mean, I feel bad for the fans because the fans don't deserve it. But it's hard to feel bad for that organization because they put themselves in this situation and they perpetuate this situation with signing that guaranteed contract that continues to keep Deshaun Watson out of trouble and on the books and holding that franchise down. Not to say that Jameis Winston, I don't know. We've had this conversation on this show and Nico and I have been talking about it too. He's fun to watch. It's not like I wouldn't like having him on the team, but do I want him starting every week? I mean, we talked about the Browns on Ohio Sports Talk when I was on with Jordan this week too. And I'm like, no, but at the same time, that is the best case scenario. Roster-wise, you better be willing to live with the interceptions and whatever else is able to happen with Jameis Winston, because what else do you have at this point? Right now, you're the basement of that division. Thank you for holding down the basement, Cleveland, because I didn't want to be there again. Thank you for holding down the basement. They're bottom of that division. How do they recover from here?
I don't know how to recover. And now Nick Chubb and broke something again. I mean, it's just like bad luck after bad luck. The Browns curse. I mean, Kozar all the way through. It's kind of wild watching Cleveland. You know, it was Cleveland everything, and then LeBron and the NBA paid for that championship or whatever. But yeah, I'm not gonna get into all that. But I do feel bad for Cleveland football fans because I feel like they went through some stuff. You know what I mean? But right now, I mean, they had to do these things with Deshaun Watson. They had to do those things because nobody's going to go there in free agency. Nobody cares about Cleveland. Jerry Judy's having a great year now with them, but he wouldn't have went there if it was otherwise. You know what I mean? Same thing with Amari Cooper. I mean, they just have to be lucky at drafting somebody or overspending, just like they're going to do with probably Cortland Sutton and some other guys.
Cortland Sutton is an interesting name. I think an interesting storyline with them is if does Stefanski keep out the rest of the season? Do you? Because I don't think that he's the issue. But when you lose this many games, it's hard to sell your franchise, your fan base on turning this thing around with the same exact guys in the same positions. Are we going to see a coordinator, maybe both coordinators go? Does Stefanski, is his seat getting hotter as they continue to lose these games? Or are they looking at it like, you know, we've given you a pretty raw deal? Does the organization admit, we kind of put you in this situation and set you up to fail, so maybe we should bail you out? Maybe. I don't. That's not the MO of these organizations, but I feel like that's warranted in this case.
Well, it definitely looks like it. I mean, it's on the paper. Just look at it. You had a chance to sign Baker Mayfield after he damn near beat the Chiefs in the playoffs and everything else. And he put y'all make y'all relevant again. Cleveland football with Baker Mayfield. Yeah, he had his ups and downs, doing TV commercials, not paying attention, whatever. But we saw something there, some moxie there, and there was some build up there, and they let him go. Now look what he's doing out in Tampa Bay. A little stint with the Rams or whatever, which got him there with Tampa Bay. Now he got him paid. And they might win a division out there. Instead, you chose to overspend for the rubber, you know, the lover, the P. Diddy oil massage. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, that's what it is. I mean,
it is what it is. I mean, and that's the thing too. The cycle that we talk about, and we might as well mention it again because we'll piss off a whole northern area of Ohio. Maybe we'll get to talking about the college football playoff a little bit too later on because that's coming up and we're excited about that. But you pay him the money to keep these allegations that continue to come out about him under wraps. They cannot take action against him as an NFL organization until he gets a criminal or a civil case brought up against him, and he's using the guaranteed money that you wrote into his contract to pay off all of these different allegations. So the organization is where the organization put themselves. You can feel as bad as you want for the fan base, but I don't feel bad for this. I mean, you did this, and then you got rid of all of the other players that, you know, I think that they were doing right by a lot of these guys. I think they did right by Amari Cooper, letting him leave because he had really done. It wasn't like he was there. It's not a Randy Moss situation in Oakland where he was there and he was a headache the entire time and he didn't actually try and play. He tried to get them to do what he wanted to do, and he was a big help for that Baker Mayfield season. But talk about, like, you got distracted by the pretty thing walking by, and you had a nice, stable relationship. She made dinner for you every night. Sometimes it tasted good. Sometimes it was not as good as it was, but damn it, it was there. You were there. You were. Are you talking
about them, or are you talking about you?
There's a lot of crossover here. The NFL has been a wild, you know, up and down situation. Real quick, let's get a Sunday Night Football update because we are going into halftime with the Green Bay Packers up 20-3. I believe that this was a game. I picked the Packers, and I saw this one going that way. I have Geno Smith on my fantasy roster, and I'm losing to Nico pretty badly. I was hoping that he was going to give me a Geno Smith performance that would maybe help me out in that situation. I'm going to be running a mile in a business suit. That's just my reality. Maybe I'll get some Jordans and say that they're business attire or something because my feet are going to be blistered up. That's for sure. What were your thoughts going into the Sunday night game? And are the Packers, you know, are they that next best team? Do you still trust them more than the Vikings? Because technically the Vikings are the second best team in that division.
Well, this game had a lot for me anyway, because like you said, the fantasy playoffs, and I'm in one of my big leagues, and I'm going against Seattle's defense. So everything that I see going on is what I needed to happen. And for Denver Broncos, they actually saved me in my big 14-team league, giving me 21 points on defense. Oh, and they giving me a chance to win when I didn't think I had a chance. So I'm excited about it. I got some betting going on too with this game. It's looking real good. So, but anyway, Green Bay is that team over the Vikings, I think. Only because I trust Josh Jacobs more than Aaron Jones. I just feel like Josh Jacobs is the more reliable, sturdy back that can dominate a game. I think Aaron Jones is past that part. He still can be a player, but it's just something about Josh Jacobs this year. It's crazy. I know all the weapons for Minnesota. I know all the weapons. But when I look at Sam Darnold versus Jordan Love, I feel like Jordan Love has enough weapons to offset that. And Green Bay's a team that I'm scared of more. And I'm glad they're only one game above us, because now if Seattle loses, we damn near clinch our spot in the playoffs, almost like 80% chance. So
It is crazy how wide open the NFC playoff picture is with the wild card, and it's getting clearer and clearer each week for the AFC. We'll look at the playoff standings here in a little bit. Josh Jacobs
and my Rams will be in first place.
Yeah, no, the Rams with that ugly ass game on Thursday night that no touchdown.
If Seattle loses, Rams in first place. There you go, Brian, the main man Johnson.
I don't know if Darren sent him the link, and I don't have Brian's number. So if Brian wants to get on and defend himself, I feel like he knows where to find it.
Yeah.
Now, Josh Jacobs with 74 yards rushing. I've said it the last few weeks. Yes, Jordan Love is great, better than what I was anticipating with the limited experience that he had coming out in college. It's Josh Jacobs that's running that team. I wish maybe when the NFL does transition over to Netflix, I said he's already come out and said there's a reason why I don't let you guys mic me up. You guys cannot hear anything that I'm saying on the field. There's a reason why you guys can't mic me up. I want to hear what he's saying, because that's obviously the driving force of this team. And that's what I want to know. As a coach, as a guy that's trying to get in the mind of his athletes to get them to go forward, I want to see what that guy's doing. That guy's obviously a leader. That's the driving force. He was the driving force on the Raiders teams. He was damn near dragging those bad teams to the postseason. That is the total. That might be the move of the entire offseason, was that pickup of Josh Jacobs.
I agree. Totally agree. Yep.
All right. Let's get out. It's start of the third quarter, so we'll get another update coming up here soon. Moving forward, real quickly, we don't have to talk about the blowouts, or a couple of them are in the early slate. The Ravens take care of the Giants. It was Tim Boyle was the quarterback for the New York Giants because of their whole effed up quarterback situation. Talk about a situation that a franchise put themselves in, going back to that Hard Knocks offseason. I don't know if any other team is ever going to agree to Hard Knocks offseason ever again, because you're like, is there anybody that's really Saquon better than everybody that's on the market? Yes.
Right.
Yes, he is. Yes. 100,000 times
everybody on the team now. Yeah.
He would be the only reason why you're scoring touchdowns, which you scored 2 touchdowns today. Congratulations. You gave up 35. Lamar Jackson had his best there we go. He admits it. He admitted it. He's more down on the 49ers than anybody else that I know right
Let's go, Brian, the main man Johnson.
Shout out, Brian. Thank you for checking in. Thank you, everybody, for checking in. Continue to put stuff in the comments. If we're talking about a game that's about your team, let us know what you think. We're on to the blowouts of the day. Cowboys 30-14, Ravens 35-14 in that early slate. Out of those two games, what is the biggest storyline that you have out of those? Is it Lamar looking like he did, 290 yards passing, 5 touchdowns? Mark Andrews makes me pay for leaving him on the bench in lieu of Kyle Pitts. So we'll see if Kyle Pitts is able to make that not as bad of a situation tomorrow. But what are the biggest storylines out of those two blowouts in the early slate?
I mean, if you look at it, you knew what it was going to be. The Ravens always beat up on teams they should be, other than the Raiders game. It's just, I don't pay attention to any of that, except for Malik Neighbors continues to dominate. If this dude gets a quarterback that has some semblance of value at all, he's going to be something special. I mean, Malik Neighbors is a specimen out here with trash quarterbacks making plays. That's what I take out of it.
he is he's my steal of the fantasy season. I think I got him in the
Yeah.
5th or 6th round because he was a rookie. Yeah, no, he was around for a while. There was a lot of other guys that I was like, wow. I got auto drafted McCaffrey number 1 because I happened to miss my first overall pick, and then I was back there and he was on the board, and I was like, it was him. I think Coleman. It was between him and Coleman, and I either picked Neighbors over Coleman, or maybe Coleman wasn't available anymore. But it was a situation where I was like, that is my one. That saves my 3-win fantasy season, and I still don't. I still have a chance of not getting the mile run. I just don't have faith. Like the kicker that I had on my roster got cut this week. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at, Terrell. It's not going well.
You should say fantasy 3 wins in fantasy. 3?
Yes, 3.
3 wins?
3. And I've had guys, I've said it. I've had guys that I put in that were playing the entire game. I had a game where Travis Etienne had 14 points and then fumbled and ended with 0 because he fumbled the game away. I was like,
I had a playoff game this past Thursday where Cooper Kupp played and got 0 points.
Yeah. That was pretty much my entire season.
So that trumps all your shit, dude.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wasn't in the playoffs. I'm just saying mine was consistent.
Oh, that's right.
Mine was a consistently bad team. I learned how to lose. If we're talking about the process, I learned how to lose in this process. I don't know if this spot is cursed. I got added to this league as a relegation ad. Like the guy that was in this spot before me got relegated. He finished last 2 years in a row. I'm like, this spot's cursed. That's all I can say, because there's no other explanation for this as bad of a run as I've been on. I know ball. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm watching.
Right.
Let's move on to, well, I guess the last of the early slate was the Jets and Jaguars. Mac Jones almost pulls off the victory out there in Duval, but Devontae Adams has a superhuman day, 9 receptions.
Yeah, against me in the playoffs. Shit.
It's tough.
Against me. He scored 40 points against me in the playoffs.
That is a tough one. But, I mean, I think the biggest issue with the Jets right now is that lack of coaching, and it's been ever since they let Saleh go. Whenever they let him go, that was the downfall of the entire rest of the season, and you get the kickoff return for a touchdown, and then you miss the extra point afterwards because you don't have somebody reminding you, take your time, focus, let's get all of the things going in the right direction. No, you don't have any of that, but they were able to pull it off today because I still don't know. Is Doug Peterson stealing the most money in the NFL at this point? Is it Deshaun Watson?
Him or Kirk Cousins, one of them, right?
I mean, Kirk Cousins is up there too.
But here's the thing about this game. The best thing I think about this game is that the Jets looked awesome and Aaron Rodgers looked awesome, because I want the Jets to keep winning and keep winning, so Aaron Rodgers can come back next year and make the fans of the New York Jets be just like the fans of the Cowboys, where they think they're always going to be great this next year, and watch them fall flat on their fucking face, because they won't be. So keep building up the Jet fans, keep building up the media, let ESPN keep talking about Aaron Rodgers and next year and everything else, and we're going to watch the repeat of what they did this year.
It seems like he is now renovating his house in New York. So he's either renovating because he is putting it on the market ready to sell. Maybe he's sticking around and just going to go across the locker room. I've heard that theory being thrown around.
Oh my God. Why would he do that?
I don't know why he would do that. I mean, maybe Malik Neighbors could be.
Maybe. But he's got Devontae Adams. I mean, Devontae Adams does anything he wants for him. Like he's like his little pet and shit.
If Rodgers is done after this season, is that Devontae Adams last season too? Do you think that he's just not going to?
Hell no.
No?
Hell no. No way. No. Devontae Adams is too good and played for too many bad teams to just retire for no reason.
I got a weird vibe off of that receiver show. I was just interested. That's kind of where I was sitting with
it. Yeah, I feel you.
For the late games, the Texans are able to get a few turnovers off of Tua. Stingley gets 2 big interceptions at the end of the game, one right out of Tyreek Hill's hands. They get a big win, 20-12, and I believe clinch the division now with everybody else losing this week. I know the Colts losing in Denver helped them out big time with that one. But Stingley, that defense, I don't necessarily – they're still way inconsistent. They're basically a step ahead of where they were last season. And they were a good team last year. what do you expect if they do make the postseason? Is this a team that can go on a run? Can they get a few turnovers at the right times? Is this a team that's turning the corner, so to speak, for that playoff style of football? Or is this still a team that's way too young and needs more experience?
Well, this is what I started the show off with. Everything's happening this week. We start seeing injuries play a toll or getting healthy. Houston is starting to get healthy at the right time. They're getting linemen back healthy. Defensive player Stingley was out for many games. Nico Collins is back showing his form. Joe Mixon missed like 3 or 4 games, and we see what he's been able to do. Dalton Schultz is coming back from little dings. I mean, I'm just saying, other than Stephon Diggs, obviously, they're starting to get healthy at the right time in a lot of different positions. It wasn't like they were getting blown out of games. They were involved in many close games that tilted one way or the other, and now getting healthy like that. And plus, getting healthy just confident. You're in the locker room as a competitor, and you see another alpha sitting across from you. You like, are we back now? Are we back now? And it just builds off of that, And they are a team that actually genuinely likes each other. They talk about it a lot, about the camaraderie of the team itself. It's not like one alpha's out here by themselves, whatever. They do everything together. It's crazy.
I think, too, talking about Josh Jacobs earlier, they had a big running back pickup that's been helping them along the way, too, with Joe Mixon. Mixon has not necessarily been putting up a huge lot of numbers, but when he gets his touches, he makes them impactful. And that's a guy that I know. He was a captain every year that he was in Cincinnati. So it's not like he's going to be keeping guys on the right track. And surprise, surprise, when CJ Stroud does get his weapons back, he's not turning the ball over quite as much. He's not trying to put as much stress on himself, and he trusts his guys a little bit more. So that was a take. I mean, it's not something I was thinking about going in, but yeah, getting those injuries back at this point, I feel like the Lions are going to be in the same spot too. It was a tough loss for them. It is high scoring game, and that onside kick was very close, but they were still. It was a long shot. Whether they recover that one or not, by the time they had scored to kind of get that game within reach. But I feel like when they get Anzalone back, they're not going to get Hutchinson back, but they're going to get a few guys back from injury that are going to start feeling like trade deadline acquisitions, and that's where teams get scary. And I feel like this is just it's hard. 17 games. I don't know what the new standard is going to be for Super Bowl contenders. It used to be like if you were 13-3, that was a pretty good statement to the rest of the league. We're ready to go. This is a championship caliber team with a 17 game schedule and the amount of times everybody has to play and the amount of injuries that everybody goes through. I feel like we're still trying to get what that number is going to be. Is it 12? Does it drop 1 where you're 12-4 and now it seems like, okay, we're ready to go, or 12-5, or is it going to be 11 games? I feel like everybody's still live when we get to the standings. Everybody that's winning their division, I feel like, is live, and they're all 3, 4, 5 loss teams, or teams that can pick up a 3rd and 5th loss.
It's all about getting in. You get in, and then the health. I mean, you talked about the Eagles and everything. Look at the Eagles. Yeah, they were dominant against a Pittsburgh team. I know you're gonna bring it up in a minute, but it's the health at the end of the game. How comfortable do you feel? I ain't gonna spoil your segue to it, but we're looking at these teams like Buffalo's getting healthier. You're starting to see them getting healthier. Dawson Knox coming back. Kincaid's gonna come back. Mari Cooper's coming back. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of health coming back for these teams, man. It's crazy. Steelers, you lose your star wide receiver, George Pickens, for 2 games, and your offense struggles a little bit. You know what I mean? This is a big game where you could have used him a lot. So health is going to be everything going forward, man. It's crazy. That's why it's all about get into the playoffs. Once you get in, anything can happen.
No, this one was big because I think that it proves the Steelers are a little bit, it's bad for TJ Watt going down at the end of the game, but they are a little bit inflated with who they've played. They were leading the division, but now that game it's down to a 1-game lead, and the Eagles, they tried to do certain things to give this one away, but Jalen Hurts continues to be really good, not turning the ball over. And we talked about Saquon quite a bit. Nico's been putting on his MVP hat for Saquon, but I think that I'm not necessarily thinking he's that anymore. He needs a couple more big games, big moments. He's still the best closer in the NFL. If I have him and we have a lead in the 4th quarter, I know I can ride 26, especially behind that offensive line, and they're always going to be in the right place. They work really well together as a unit. there has not been a drop-off losing a guy like Jason Kelce. And I know that he was older last year, but that's still a guy that's there and he's leading all the communication. There hasn't been that much of a drop-off. So I trust them, and getting the 11-2 spot now, I believe they take over the number 1 spot in the NFC because the Lions pick up their 3rd loss. And if the playoffs go through the link, that changes things. I feel like the Lions need the home field advantage, and I feel like it's maybe even more so than the Eagles at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Lions need the home field advantage. But psychologically, I don't know. They went into the 49ers place last year and just basically was destroying them, and they gave it away. So I don't really know. I think the coach offsets a lot of that. But I'm not scared of Philadelphia. If we play Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs, I'm not nervous because all I need is what I said. The health. You give me Zach Ertz healthy, my wide receivers healthy, my line back healthy now. Daniels is healthy. We know that Hurts has a broken finger. We just saw what happened to AJ Brown and his leg and ankle and everything else. Goddard's already out. Devontae Smith's been out and in. AJ Brown's been out and in. Barkley got dinged up a few times in this game. All it takes is a matchup with a team that's coming in beat up, especially as a division rival, knowing your ins and outs. That's a game they wouldn't want to play. I'm not saying this next week that we're going to get them, but if it just happened to be a first-round matchup and all those dings and things that happen to them get worse, you just never know. You never know.
That's, I guess, maybe then for the Eagles, it's more about getting the bye as the number 1
yes,
seed and being
that's
able
what
to
it
get
is.
that extra week of health. And I feel like the Lions maybe too. Everybody at the NFL level, if you're at that point where you're ready to win a championship, it shouldn't matter if you have to go on the road or if you host all the way through the playoffs, even though that has been, I mean, the last time the Eagles won, it was all the way through the link in the NFC Championship, and that was a big part of them. They were also playing Case Keenum and getting to the Super Bowl that way. No, with this game, I think, like I said, are you on my side with the Steelers? Do you think that they were inflated and this is just, it's going to be a cute story, but are you still on the track? I think that we both said that they're going to be a first round exit.
I've never thought highly of the Steelers. Every week I'm surprised. Every week I'm like, maybe I need to give them love. But it's always been what I said. Anytime you have somebody on your team that can win you a game by himself in TJ Watt, and I stand by that. There's only a handful of players that can do that can win a game by themselves. And then you lose that. Now I really don't think that you can do anything. I have no confidence in anybody else. Najee Harris has been okay throughout his career. Russell Wilson, you were that, now you were this, and now you're just trying to be relevant again, just like Justin Fields. I mean, Mike Tomlin, you've been around, you won a championship, but you've just been middle of the road. Just because you haven't had a losing season doesn't mean that you've been 11-3 every year either. You've been mediocre and you've been average. To me, you know what I mean? I'm not saying you're a bad coach. I love the organization. I'm envious of it. But there's nothing that stands out to me that I should be intimidated about the Steelers other than TJ Watt. I'm not scared about no black and yellow towels twirling all over it. I don't care about that. It's TJ Watt. And without him, the Steelers are not the Steelers.
Yeah, and Cam Hayward he's a game wrecker, but he benefits a lot. He benefits a lot from that edge pressure that they get. That's where the quarterback has to step up, and that's where Hayward gets a lot of his money at this point in his career. He's just older at this point, not as dynamic. Let's move over to the game that I was at in person. We stayed the entire time. The Broncos clinch a playoff spot for the first time since Peyton Manning was in the building, and it was not behind Bo Nix. As you can see, there was a lot of turnovers in this game. Anthony Richardson, my dad texted me. He goes, after Anthony Richardson ran that first touchdown in, he texted me and he knew I was sitting at the stadium. He goes, Anthony Richardson going to make you eat your words? I said, he's guaranteed for 2 picks. Trust me. And then lo and behold, 2 interceptions later, a fumble that was not his fault, but that was a bad situation. It was really the turning point of the entire game because the Colts were dominating, leading the entire thing, was Jonathan Taylor dropping that ball. He Leon Ledded.
No, that was crazy.
He Leon Ledded himself, and it was close. That was a lot closer than the Leon Lett situation, but
I'm cussing.
Are you
Dude, I'm still cussing. Well, I was cussing because I benched Jonathan Taylor for Zach Charbonnet. And I'm like, he just ran a 40-yard touchdown, and then they took it back. I'm like, man, I'd have been mad. But now looking at it, and now that Geno Smith just got hurt, and they bringing in the old Washington Commander, Sam Howell, I need Zach Charbonnet to do something, please. But yeah, man, Jonathan Taylor has not looked right all year. I don't know if he's 100% healthy. I don't know if they just put him back there because they felt like they had. I don't know if he feels like he needs to be there because of the contract that he finally got after sitting out and all these different things. I don't know what it is, the pressure or whatnot, but he's not healthy. You can look at him and tell he's not that same guy. Anthony Richardson is not that guy to be throwing dimes to these wide receivers because they have some talented wide receiver room. Pierce, Downs, and Pittman, they have a good wide receiver room that you saw people like Flacco or whoever else that's competent at throwing the ball can change. You know what I mean? So hopefully after this year, Taylor can get healthy and Richardson can work on his game like Jalen Hurts did a little bit as far as throwing the ball, and Lamar Jackson for that matter.
Yeah, he's 30% completion percentage, like 40% average, and that's just not winning football. And it wasn't his fault. That's not the pick six that really swayed the score and put it out of reach, because at 11 points, I did feel pretty comfortable sitting there thinking that the Broncos were going to be able to pull that off. And that's why he started taking his timeouts with 6 minutes left. I'm like, why are you taking your timeouts now? It's not like I trust myself at 11 points or 14 points. If I'm 14 points down, I feel even worse about myself. Lo and behold, you were calling your timeouts so that you could call a double pass that gets pick six. Nick Benito in back-to-back weeks that the Broncos have been on the field has 2 pick sixes and 14 points to his name. This defense did what they needed to do, but the Colts really they gave this game to the Denver Broncos in a situation where they had to win to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah. They did. The coach outthought himself. First of all, you as a coach, you put your players in the best spots for the best situations. And why would you ever do a double pass, first of all, to somebody that's not used to throwing it to somebody else that's struggling to throw it? I mean, you just set yourself up for failure with that. If you're going to do something like that, you throw it back to Anthony Richardson to run a screen or something. You know what I mean? You don't do it for the time. So I don't understand the whole game plan and the whole game calling. But that furthermore shows me that Jonathan Taylor is not healthy. Or else you would ride him. You would trust him in certain moments to get you some chunk plays to make it easier for your quarterback to throw the ball. And when the team knows that they can't run the ball the way that they used to, the quarterback has no shot, man. It has no shot. So the play calling needs to be really accurate at what they need to do, and they just wasn't.
And I'll finish this game up with a chance for you to talk about what you saw at Bo Nix. That was 3 bad interceptions, 3 terrible turnovers. He had one or 2 scrambles. He did end up throwing a couple touchdown passes as well, and his team got the win. But like I said at the beginning of this discussion of this game was not won because of him. And this does not – this was a rookie game, if you want to call it that, but this was a bad performance of a team that is now – you're in the playoffs. So you got to start seeing some more progression and some more consistency. And this is his worst turnover game since that early stretch of the season. But this still not good enough and needs to be better if this team is actually going to be something moving forward.
Well, this has always been my argument with the whole comparison about rookie of the year between Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix is the beginning of the year, we saw both quarterbacks struggle a little bit, but Jaden Daniels was still putting up numbers. The whole thing was he's running too much. He's not a stand-up pocket. He's running because he doesn't know which way to go and things like that. And they were saying Bo Nix is just playing the game. He knows he has a strong defense. He's just being there and he wasn't making turnovers in the beginning. He was being like that, but he wasn't putting up numbers either. So as the numbers start progressing, the turnovers started coming also. But he's just one of those guys, kind of like a Tebow-ish, that just brings confidence to players. He's been around. Think about it. You're out there at Auburn dealing with, what you have to deal with as a college player at Auburn and Oregon. You're in these big time schools having to deal with things. So I'm sure he learned all kinds of leadership guidance, all kinds of things of that nature for that locker room. But it always comes down to the final thing is you bounced around from college to college because you were good, but you just wasn't the guy to get them over the hump. That's what bothers me about Bo Nix is that part of it. I think people are just putting too much on him instead of just letting him be what he is and putting people in places around him like that strong defense. Now figure out what your running game is. Obviously, it's not Javonte Williams. You're starting my boy from Notre Dame, and you got McLaughlin too out there. Figure out what you want to do in that position. You have all kinds of young, talented receivers that are not getting paid money. They're not getting paid money right now. And Bo Nix is on a rookie contract. You have opportunity right now to build some pieces around him that enhance his positives instead of showing off his negatives. And I think you have the perfect coach to put those pieces in place. So as the years keep going on, the team success, I think, it might surpass Washington's team success because of those attributes around Bo Nix.
That's also a point I was making. I was at the game with my brother, and I was saying Sean Payton's going to piss a lot of people off because at this point, when they were up 11, he was more than fine running the ball 3 times and kicking a field goal if they got a sudden change. Like, I'm just here to keep the points. I'm not going to put – my quarterback's already proven. He's got the turnover bug today. I'm not going to make him throw it with these linebackers that are lurking and – going in, dropping into their zones late and confusing him. We're going to run the ball. We're going to put him in good spots. And then there was a couple times where Cortland Sutton came open at the end of the game. Cortland Sutton is an interesting case because I've said that I think that it's time to probably move on from him. You're not going to give him the money contract. I feel like there's other moves that you can make. You're on that same page. You think that he's no longer going to be a Denver Bronco after this season?
I wouldn't, because why would you overpay for a position when you have a ton of young talent on very minimum contracts already with your quarterback on his rookie deal? Utilize that money on places where you need it. You can get high-end running backs at very low cost, as we've seen. Go ahead and get you some kind of a running back to help your rookie quarterback, a veteran that still has something on the tank, and then build around that. Go ahead and get you, I don't think your tight end's great either. I know some people do. But build an offensive line to protect your quarterback. You know what I mean? I just think you have a lot of things out there, but that money you can't waste on another wide receiver when you have too many young wide receivers there.
Yeah, and I like Vele. I like if Franklin gets a little bit more opportunity, I think he can do something. And Mims is
the guy too, yeah.
Huge 50-yard punt return, and that was, you saw him start pointing, and you're like, oh shit, are we gonna see one? Are we gonna see how it's going? The 50-yard punt return, that was, momentum plays, and this team, they took the punches. That's what they know. At home, you got to take the punches in the first half because nobody likes to play in Denver in the second half, especially in the second half of the season, because it got cold. It was not a comfortable setting, and you're already struggling to breathe. And then it drops from like 50 degrees with the sunlight to 35 degrees and the wind's blowing a little bit. And you're like, just get me home. If we win, we're 7-7. If we lose, we're 6-8. Just get me home. Get me back on the plane. Get me in the shower, and let's figure this thing out next week. Because I'm not here anymore. I'm not playing, and I got no oxygen left in my brain. Last games of the second slate before we wrap up and talk a little bit about what we see in Sunday Night Football now that it's heading towards the fourth quarter. Another 2 blowouts to wrap up. Cardinals take care of the Patriots, and the Cardinals keep pace with what they need to do. We're going to look at the standings before we wrap up here too. But Baker Mayfield, really, it's more about the Chargers in that situation, because the Chargers going into that game against the Ravens, even last week a little bit too, like this team is so much more talented, and Harbaugh is getting so much more out of Justin Herbert. They're still sitting at a similar record to what they had last season. They're not losing games in as bad a fashion, but you're still losing quite a few games, and you're still not able – you have no receivers. You got rid of all your receivers, and you're trying to prove that you're the Kansas City Chiefs when you have none of the championship pedigree, and that health thing is starting to really rear its ugly head on your defensive side and your receiver room and maybe even your quarterback. I don't know. I had a lot more faith in this team a couple weeks ago, but today, losing the way that they did to Tampa, and Tampa's a good team, but that was not a performance that I'm like, yeah, that team, if they get a wild card spot, look out. If they get a wild card spot, I'm like, the 7 seed, hopefully you're done on the first Saturday.
Totally agree. I was higher on them a couple weeks ago also. But I just think people forget how good Tampa Bay is. Tampa Bay started out the year as one of the elite teams before the injury bug hit them. Before the injury bug hit them, they were on fire. And now I know they don't have Godwin. I know they don't have him. But both running backs are getting back healthy. And, which made and being without those receivers, Cade Otton became a tight end that people wind up knowing how good he could be. And Mike Evans is what he is, future Hall of Famer. He's just showcasing everything else. And Baker Mayfield is just sitting back, closing his mouth, and leading that team in the locker room. He's another locker room moxie guy. Baker Mayfield can hype up anybody. You know, he can just he can hype up anybody. He walks in that locker room, hypes him up, and does his thing. But there's so many veterans on that team. They're telling him, you know, keep that in the locker room. And he's doing it. He got to pay this money. They're going to win the division over the Atlanta Falcons, who I thought was going to win. But this is going to be, what, the fourth straight year Tampa Bay's won, or fifth straight year? One of the two. But Tampa Bay might be a team that people need to worry about in the playoffs. I wouldn't want to play them in the first round. As many points as they can score.
And that defensive line, too, the later you get in that season, Vita Vea, if he stays as healthy as he has looked coming back from his injury, that is a huge difference maker, and nobody can run on them. He takes up both A gaps and a little bit of the B gap just by standing there, let alone he's knocking your center back into the backfield and causing your quarterback to, you know, you can't go up the middle. And you can't really go on the outsides, and they still have Levante David, and they still have Antoine Winfield Jr. Like, they are still a very talented team. They've been slept on because of that injury bug, but now they have, you know, they were one of those teams early on in the season. They got $60 million on IR. Just wait. And the Falcons, I mean, I feel like we were saying just wait so that the Bucks could sneak in for a wild card spot, and the Falcons were just like, shit. Were we supposed to win?
I need Kirk Cousins, though. I need the Falcons, though. I need the Falcons for the playoffs and fantasy. Oh, my God. But can I give a clap? Can I give a clap out to Coach Todd Bowles? Coach Todd Bowles, who's talked about being fired 2-3 straight years, just continues to be there and be a constant with that organization. And I just think, man, he's one of those coaches, and the way it's looking, he could be there for a long time if they stay with him. He's had the talent. He's not had the talent, but he's still consistent on what he does. I love it. I love it. I don't think people talk about him enough.
No, I feel like people are way more quicker to blame him for when they struggle. And he was a guy, I feel like you have to take into account. He was the picked person for Bruce Arians. When Bruce Arians was done, he was the guy that BA wanted to run this organization and stick with it. And, hey, he lost. Not only did Bruce Arians step down, but when Bruce Arians stepped down, he lost Tom Brady. So instead of having the 25-year Hall of Fame quarterback running your team, you're like, we took a flyer on Baker Mayfield. He seemed like he was pretty good in Cleveland, but then Carolina screwed him. And then he had a couple good games with the Rams. So maybe. And, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes
he looked in the mirror and said, I'm going to take a flyer on somebody that, like me, nobody thought I could do it. Yeah. Nobody wants to get me. They want to fire me. And I love it, dude. I love it.
It was solid. It was a solid pickup for them. Let's look a little bit at the playoff standings. I got the AFC pulled up on the screen right now. Kansas City and Buffalo and Houston have all clinched their divisions. Pittsburgh has clinched a playoff spot, but they are holding on to a one-game lead in the AFC North. The Broncos, technically, I guess numbers-wise with all the tiebreakers, it was they winning that game today put them at like a 75 to 80% playoff chance at this point. So it's a little bit less than what I was saying. They didn't officially clinch, but that was a huge step for them. Looking at the AFC, it's funny that the Bengals don't have an E next to their name for me. Are the Dolphins out is the question that I'm going to ask for this one. Are the Dolphins done?
I can't say that they're done because the Chargers keep being done. And the Colts keep being done. So all those teams for that final spot, I'm like, which one of y'all actually want to make the playoffs? You know what I'm saying? You know, I think the Ravens are one of the teams that's going to get the wild card, but who's going to be the other one? I mean, I'm like, everybody just keeps on like, okay, no, you take it. No, you take it. No, you take it. I'm going to take it. No, you take it. Nobody wants to just grab a hold of it. So I won't say that they're done just yet, but I feel like in this part of the season, whoever can go on a run 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3 can grab a hold of it.
The Broncos right now are on a stretch where they also will play the Bengals coming up after the week after Christmas. And I feel like that might be the time that they officially clinch their playoff spot.
Yeah.
And that could also be because the Broncos have the Chargers coming up on Thursday. And we just had a huge conversation about that. We'll look at a little bit of that game when we talk about the Monday night games too. But there's a few games in the AFC coming up that are not division championship games, but this is basically like playoff type games because you're playing for the wild card. Like we said, just get to the dance, get to the tournament, make yourself on the bracket and see where you can go.
Yep.
Let's move over to the NFC side. Like we said, there's a lot of teams there's 3 teams that are eliminated, but then everybody else, the only teams that have clinched spots, nobody's won their division yet. The Lions and the Eagles both sitting technically a tie for first place at 12-2. And then the Lions obviously lose today, so they're going to drop down. Seahawks not looking great, especially on Sunday Night Football. Right now, it looks like the Rams are going to be able to overtake them. You predicted that the Rams are going to finish with that NFC West division title. Is that standing true? Is that going to be your take?
It's definitely true, and I think they're one of the scariest teams to make the playoffs. Don't let them win the division, get a home playoff game against a team that's really ranked higher than them or looked upon as better than them, because they could pull an upset. I don't want to play the Rams or Tampa Bay on the road. Like one of these wild card teams that might be better than them record-wise. I don't want to play either one of them on the road.
The teams that I feel like they're not eliminated, but their fan bases would probably appreciate it if they were, so that we would have.
Don't say Dallas.
I was going to say Dallas and San Francisco, the former rivalry of the 1990s. Those are the two fan bases that were like, I just lose, just continue to lose. And let's focus on the 49ers, because I do want to get your take on this one too. Dre Greenlaw coming in, and then Devondre Campbell refusing to go back onto the field. I mean, right. I don't know if there's been any news. It might have to wait until this next the start of the next NFL week. Are you assuming that Campbell's going to be cut? I obviously don't think that he's not going to be cut. He's just not going to be put on the field anymore.
They wanted to cut him, and then they decided to say, no, wait a minute. Why should we reward him for the bullshit that he did, and by cutting him and go to a contender to help him win? They said, no, they're just going to put him on a season-long suspension.
There we go.
So he can't go somewhere else, which is proper. You don't want to play? Then you ain't got to play, but you're still going to be under our organization, and we'll decide that you ain't going to play. I love it.
I can't believe it.
What do you mean you don't want to go back in the game? You are great. You ungrateful. What are you doing? I don't want to go back in the game. This is all I do in my life. I have to play this sport for a living to raise my family, and that's what I do for a living. But I don't want to go back in the game because I want to be petty about something. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
You were not even on the roster at the beginning of the season. You're only here because he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl last year. That's the reason.
It's ridiculous, yo. I just don't understand.
There's been a lot of talk about it because it was obviously, I mean, I've never seen, I think the closest that I've seen to that situation before was that whole Antonio Brown mess.
Yeah, that shit was crazy.
I was like, what's going on? Oh, okay. Yeah. And another guy, and thinking about it, I can't believe that he made it out of the locker room. I mean, he didn't really make it out of the locker room. The verbal beating that guy took from every person that got interviewed after that game, I mean, it's not worth all of what he deserved. He deserved a lot more. He deserved everything that everybody said about him, because there's so many guys. Like, you got a guy that's playing that was shot a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So you just decide that you don't want to play when you got that guy sitting in your locker room, and you got McCaffrey that tried to come back and go to Europe, and you got Kittle who's always nursing something, and Purdy. You can't tell me that Purdy doesn't want the defense to look good or better now because it helps him. He's not that good enough.
He needs that. He needs that.
Defense. So you got so many different things going wrong for you. Like I said, lose so that we can just forget about your existence, because right now all the things that we're hearing about are the terrible situations. And it would be, here's the other question for them. Are they going to move on from Shanahan?
No, why would you? No way.
If you talk to Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson.
Well, Mr. Johnson, I don't pay no attention to what Mr. Johnson says. He's a fandom of that squad. We all say, look in the mirror there, Jimmy. We all say crazy things about our squads in the heat of the moment, or we're just fed up. You know what I mean? He's saying that right now.
He's saying my coach, the coach in Cincinnati, should be fired is a lot more warranted than Kyle Shanahan being fired at this point.
I don't think either one of them should be fired. At all. I think their GM needs to be fired for Cincinnati. You got Joe Burrow making the headlines, breaking records. You got 2 wide receivers on your team that are all elite, that can be number ones for any team in the NFL. But you don't want to pay either one of them yet. Like, what are you doing? Then you let Joe Mixon go. You let Tyler Boyd go. Like, I don't understand what the coach has to do with this. The coach didn't do this shit. He's trying to coach these people. When you got disgruntled wide receiver who are still putting up numbers. I mean, Jamar Chase is putting up numbers that are staggering. Joe Burrow, staggering. But Joe Burrow got his money. But Joe Burrow knows he needs those guys too to keep getting that. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think the GM needs to evaluate themselves other than the coach. The coach is trying to do the best he can with what you give him.
And the unfortunate thing, I think, in that situation is that the GM is related to the owner, and the owner is also notoriously cheap. So
yes,
there we go. That's now we know why I've been so frustrated this season. Why I should just never get my hopes up. I should just always go into the season expecting nothing and then be surprised when good things happen. That's what I.
Why do you think I'm so happy now? Because I do that every year.
I did it for a long time, and every time that I've tried to get on the bandwagon, Vontaze Burfict is probably the worst one that I had. I talked so much. I ran my mouth so much that wild card round, and we were so close. And then that whole situation happened, and it was after a wrestling tournament. We rushed home so that I could sit down and watch the entire game. And I'm sitting on the couch, and just Joey Porter's at midfield fighting half of our roster after that whole situation. I'm like, I can't believe we did it again. I can't believe we found a way to do it again.
Yep.
All right, let's wrap things up. We're about an hour in. I'm not going to go as long as Darren. I'm not as good with him. He knows the segments a lot better than I do. But let's talk about these Monday Night Football matchups because we do have a doubleheader coming up. The Bears and Vikings.
But do you care about either one of these games, Jimmy?
No, that's why we didn't.
Let me ask you one. If we're gonna finish this show, let's finish it off with a bang.
All right.
Let's finish it off with a bang. Let me ask you a question. Because the biggest game of the week was what? Detroit versus Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
We talked about both of these teams being elite on both NFC and AFC, and I was thinking to myself earlier tonight about this game, and I said the way it ended. Is it a bigger headline story on Buffalo's end, or is it a bigger headline story, or in my words, a big-time storyline for the Lions? Which one, in your opinion, is big for what team and which reason why for that team?
This one, looking at it and thinking about it, and obviously I was in the stadium, so I'll have to go back and I'll try and watch. I recorded it, so I'll watch the TV broadcast, so I have a little bit better of an understanding. But as I was watching the scoreboard and then watching the highlights, and it was they kept getting updated during Football Night in America. I think back to that early season Alabama and Georgia matchup, and I heard a lot of similar opinions. Like, yeah, Alabama won that game. But did you see how, if that game goes on for 10 more minutes, there's no way that Carson Beck had figured them out at that point. There's no way that Alabama's not going to give that game away. I feel similar about this situation. That was a tough play on the onside kick, and I don't know why Dan Campbell was kicking an onside kick with 12 minutes left. I feel like that was where we started. That was the one gamble this season that you can look at and say, yeah, that was dumb and it didn't pay off, and I don't know why you thought it was going to pay off. Okay, reel your balls back in here. We don't need to throw them out on the 50-yard line every single time. The Lions were able to score at will at the end of that game. I feel like if that thing goes 10 more minutes, the Bills fans should be more nervous. I would be more nervous about them because you already know your defense is going to give up 40. You've given up 40 back-to-back weeks, and you happen to get a win this game because you had a little bit bigger of a lead, and Josh Allen is a dude. He's a stud. He's probably your MVP at this point. He's overtaken that entire conversation. But Jared Goff threw 5 touchdowns today.
Yeah. And I agree, and I understand what you're saying. And I set you up for this because I knew you would take Detroit, because anybody rational would still say Detroit, especially the way they came back and made it really close towards the end of the game. But, I like to debate, even though my man in Denver said I didn't know how to debate, but he don't want to get on nobody's show and debate with me. But anyway, I'm going to say it's all about Buffalo. And the reason why I say that is because they had 2 tough losses against the Ravens and Houston. When I'm talking about contenders, 2 tough losses where they could have won. But we forget that they beat Kansas City. And now they've beaten Detroit, who were supposedly number 1 in the AFC and number 1 in the NFC. And they've beaten them both. You know what I mean? So when I look at that, and then I look at the health of Patrick Mahomes in the AFC, nobody in the AFC really scares me to beat Buffalo because Josh Allen's on a mission. And when I watch the game, he's doing things like I will not lose. You know, like Jay-Z back in the day, I will not lose. You know what I'm saying? He's running the ball with a purpose. He's doing everything with a purpose. And you know what he's not doing? He's not throwing interceptions like he had been doing all his career. And I'm just saying, Buffalo, if Buffalo doesn't get to the Super Bowl this year, I would be astonished. Josh Allen looks like he's going to will his team to do whatever it takes. Even in those losses against the Ravens in Houston, he was that guy in the game. In both of those losses, he was still the man. I'm just saying, Buffalo showed me some things. Detroit has too many games where they've had to come back. You know, whether they threw 5 picks and still threw 5 touchdowns and come back. They barely came back and beat Green Bay. They barely came back and beat Minnesota. It's been too many of those kind of games for Detroit where the loss of Aiden Hutchinson rears its ugly head ginormously for that team.
And I'll debate you.
And Philadelphia's on their ass. Ain't nobody on Buffalo's ass.
Like you said, Philly might end up overtaking that. But
yes.
I'm going to sit here and say the NFC seems like it's tougher, and it's tougher in those spots. You're going to get tougher games in the NFC, and the Bills learned that because their 2 toughest games so far in the last 2 weeks have been NFC opponents. So I'm not going to sit here and it's great for them. And I agree that they're probably the best in the AFC, and I don't necessarily worry about them getting to the Super Bowl, but all the Bills have shown me this last 2 weeks is that they're going to struggle with these top teams in the NFC. It is all about getting to the Super Bowl for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, but that franchise is haunted by just getting to the Super Bowl with these really talented-ass offensive teams.
Yeah.
So
I feel you.
It might end up being history repeating itself. That's a good topic.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to see where it ends up. I want Detroit to get there. Lord knows I hate the damn Eagles. I definitely want Detroit to get there, but I love some Josh Allen, and I've seen him win with less in so many instances, and I love that aspect of it. I love when somebody's like, I don't need all that extra like y'all get. Watch what I do. Watch what I do. I will bring the success to it. I love that. I think Josh Allen's the man, and I think Buffalo is that team this year. No offense to my brother-in-law, Derek, who's a Raven fan, but it's Josh Allen's baby. Josh Allen.
Well, now speaking about the MVP, let's wrap things up and put a bow on it. Last night was the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Travis Hunter is crowned Heisman Trophy winner. Nice speech that he was able to make. I tweeted out from our account, one of the most humble and really impactful, impactful in so many more ways. But I said impactful. That program is now a nationally prominent program. They are getting, not to talk about the video game, but they got an update in the video game. Like, they're relevant. And I feel like I don't know, I said it a couple weeks ago, I'm not tied to this thing that Deion's going to be here forever and Prime's going to be here forever. But when you got this situation, this outside of winning and going to the playoff and winning a conference championship, this is probably the next best thing that we could have expected out of Shador, Travis Hunter, and Coach Prime, because it might be over after this bowl game. They all say that they're going to play in the bowl game, and I'm inclined to believe Travis Hunter when he says that he's going to play and he's going to want to win and play as hard as he can.
Oh, they're going to play. They're going to play.
It's BYU too, so it's not like it's going to be the toughest matchup that they can play in. But what did you think of last night's Heisman Trophy ceremony? The 4 finalists, Dylan Gabriel, quarterback from Oregon, Genty, running back from Boise State, and then obviously Cam Ward, quarterback from Miami. Travis Hunter elevated himself above all of the rest in the voters' eyes and picks up the 100. I think it was 100. I can't think of the number, like 125th Heisman Trophy. I'll look it up as you give your thoughts. But what did you think about last night?
I mean, this year's Heisman it's bittersweet because quarterbacks always win this award. And when the Boise State running back actually, he should have. I wish this was next year for him, because I would love to see 2 straight years of 9 quarterbacks winning this award. You know what I mean? Because he deserved it so much. But then when you have a phenomenon like Travis Hunter, who I've said out of my mouth, he might be the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life. As far as the things he can do, and people look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, yo, You can't find a person that plays almost every play on fucking football. In football, to play every single play, offense, defense, special team. I mean, it's unheard of. It's unheard of. And we've seen Charles Woodson win the Heisman with this much offensive ability. We've seen how much love Deion Sanders gets with this much offensive ability, playing wide receiver and afraid to tackle. And Travis Hunter's not scared of any of them. He won 2 games by himself at the goal line against ranked teams, stopping them at the goal line with his pads to win 2 games. Not only the touchdowns did he get as a wide receiver, as a defensive back, and all the interceptions, and he's a shutdown corner. He's a phenomenon, the greatest athlete I have seen with my eyes, if his longevity career expands the way it should, with barring injuries or any kind of other life-threatening things that could happen. It's awesome. Yeah. It's great. And like you say, you brought it up. What makes it even better is he's not in your face telling you how great he is. He's telling you how I'm just trying to play the game I love and my teammates and this and this. Dude, you are a fucking official. And he just acts like I couldn't imagine being what he is and what he can become because he acts like he's just your average Joe. It's awesome. It's awesome.
And he said that, I think the biggest part of his speech, what was the biggest thing that stood out is he does it for his family and he does it for his siblings. He's the oldest. He's trying to set an example. And I mean, what an example at this point, going from, blazing his own path. All of the finalists, I think, deserve credit because they all, Genty deserves credit. And I think it ended up being what maybe hurt him in the eyes of the voters. But that loyalty that he showed to turn down the 7-figure offers in the transfer portal and stay at Boise State to be the running back, it was the competition that really ended up beating him in the end. But Cam Ward starting at Incarnate Word University and Dylan Gabriel at UCF, all of these guys did it their own way, and they were all really good examples. And I think that was the biggest thing out of the entire ceremony was that there was no guy that was in that's kind of what they look for in the Heisman Trophy winner. But all of those guys, going back as many years as you can remember, those speeches of the guys that win the award and the people that are there and you get to see their families. I think that's probably my favorite part is when they sit down with the parents and you're like, you went how many miles as he was growing up? It's like, I would have gotten 5 jobs to drive him and fly him wherever he would have been because he was committed. And, I think that all of the dedication that was shown, that was the best part about the entire ceremony. And Travis Hunter, taking my bias out of it because it's been one of the coolest things to be able to say over the last 2 years is that we have one of the best athletes that has ever played the entire game of football in our state and leaving an impact, a legacy. Those last 2 games that he played at Folsom Field against Utah and Oklahoma State, where he clinched his Heisman Trophy, those were just bully matchups. He was they were just spamming his button and he was just making all the different plays. It didn't matter. They handed him the ball at one point and he ran 15 yards back. He goes, "I'll go here."
Video game. It's great.
All right, let's wrap things up and you tell everybody where they can find you coming up. I know that you talked about it at the beginning, but if anybody joined late, where can they find Realism Sports Talk?
They can find us on YouTube and Spotify, Realism Sports Talk, where we talk about sports from Hall of Famers to the local talent to the big-time storylines. And we're going to be live 2 weeks every week, two shows a week. It's going to be great. We'll have our Friday Night Raw shows. We getting back at it, baby. Always a pleasure to be with you, Jimmy, on any platform, Far Into the Bench, or on any show on the Variety Sports Network. You everywhere, baby.
I'm glad that Darren gave me the opportunity. I needed to prove it to myself again that I could run one of these shows. I've been relying on him heavily. Big shout out again to his son. Happy birthday. And Darren,
happy birthday.
Take care of your family first and foremost. You texted me, the Italian guys, like, I probably can't make the show. I got my son's birthday dinner. Yeah, that's fine. Family's the most important thing. So go take care of your family. Darren, we miss you this week. We'll be glad to have you back next week. Hopefully we did you enough justice. Be sure to check out Talkin the Gridiron every Sunday, 7th inning stretch coming up Thursdays, Saturday morning tailgate. I believe they're doing Monday shows with the way that the rankings and the bracket system works. Far Into the Bench this Thursday, we are having our first ever 12-team playoff bracket pick'em show. We've been doing a bowl pick'em show for the last 4 years. This will be the first of the playoffs. You're not going to like my first round matchup with your Notre Dame.
I don't care. You're usually wrong. It doesn't matter. You're usually wrong.
And that is, if there's anything that's been more true said on this show, I don't think that we can say it. Anyways, for myself, Jimmy Pilato, Terrell from Relatives Sports Talk, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to Talkin the Gridiron here on Variety Sports Network. We will see you guys later on.